Okay, folks, we need to get started. Thank you for joining us. It's a busy evening tonight. We're so happy to have you, and I am just honored to have this special evening tonight with our wonderful guests. Um, our Eagles Forum motto is for God, family, and country. Amen? Is that good or what? And our scripture is, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. It's an honor to represent God, family, and country. And we're just happy that you chose to join us this evening. Um, Natalie, if you would come up, I would like to introduce you. And I asked Natalie to open in prayer tonight. I'm sure that you're all aware of what is happening in Iran. Do we need to pray, you think? Amen, amen. Okay, so Natalie is is going to be our moderator tonight. Brad Davis wasn't able to come because he was going to be in Washington, D.C., and Natalie works with Brad for Pacific Justice Institute, and she is an attorney. We're just honored to have her tonight, and so I asked her to come and specifically pray for our nation and for Israel and for Iran. Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Let's open up with prayer. God, thank you for bringing us all together, Lord. Thank you because the people in this room care about this state and what's going to happen in the future, Lord. We just pray that your Holy Spirit comes down and just opens everyone's eyes as to what we should do moving forward with this state, Lord. Just who you want to be in charge of this state and just our leader. And God, we just pray. We pray for what's happening in Iran and Israel, Lord. Thank you because there's biblical prophecies being fulfilled, Lord. And we're just we're just grateful, God. I'm excited to see what you have in store for the future, Lord. And I just pray for all the people in this room to just lean closer to you, Lord, that this isn't a source of fear for anyone. You don't give us fear, Lord. I just ask that you just draw us all closer to you in these situations, God. And yeah, be with us throughout this night, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, I have a pastor that used to say, I'm going to talk fast, so listen fast. So that's what we need to do tonight. We have a lot of information. That is why I print these packets. So if you didn't get one, please be sure and get a packet. This is the information that I'm not going to have time to go over tonight. So that's really important. We have a conference coming up April 25th, and it is really taken from an agenda that my son and I watched that we were so impressed with, that is dealing with very serious issues that we are going to have to face and decide what we are going to do about these serious issues. Smart cities, property rights, AI and technocracy, digital identity, CBDC, and transhumanism. Are those heavy duties or what? And so we really, I felt needed to be educated on these, and we're flying in great speakers that are very well versed on these topics. And so you have this information in your packet. We are accepting donations for a silent auction at our conference. And if you have a boat and would like the winner to ride or let them stay at a house. If you have like a timeshare that you would like to be part of the silent auction, or if you have books, jewelry, beaded purse, paintings, nice dishes, crystal dishes, whatever. We are accepting creative ways of for the silent auction at our conference. Okay, you can renew your membership. And Stephanie, raise your hand. Stephanie will be glad to help you. She has the forms there. And Eagle Forum OC next month meeting. Actually, it's the end of this month. It's March 29th. And it's going to be here at the same location, same time, 7 p.m. And it's going to be a candidate forum with local candidates. And also Michael Gates is going to join us again at that meeting. Okay, we have a webinar on March 23rd. And our own Orlean Curla is going to be speaking on smart cities. I don't know if you're familiar with smart cities, but it's another means of controlling you. And so it's real important that you learn about smart cities. Okay, we need a secretary. If you know how to type, if you know how to talk on the phone, our meetings are usually on the phone once a month. So let me know if you're interested in being our secretary. Fountain Valley going to have 2 openings on the school board. And so if you know anyone who lives in Fountain Valley who is interested, please let me know. We have someone who is willing to train whoever is willing to run for that position. Okay, you need to know that we invited Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco, and they weren't available tonight. We asked if they would be available and on March 29th, and we were willing to change the date, and that date didn't work out for them either. So we kept the governor's candidate this evening instead. And so I just wanted you to know that we tried to include them. We also asked for video clip. We received one from Steve Hilton, but we didn't from Chad. I am happy to introduce Jenny Warman. Jenny, you can come up. She is our Eagle Forum Orange County Vice President over programs, and she is over this evening's programs. So I'm happy to include her. And oh, I forgot something here. In your package, I have a whole page issues the candidates for governor address in their websites. And so you can, when you get home, you can look up their website. I have their website at the top of the page, and look at the issues that they discuss on that page. This is our announcement, so I did that to save time tonight. And you should find this one interesting. Should non-citizens vote, you think? Okay, I threw that in for fun. All right, so Jenny, I'm happy to turn it over to you. And we need to introduce Michael Gates early.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, instead of the first candidate, because Michael has to leave.
Okay, well, I'll just introduce him. Is he coming up to speak right now? Okay, I'm happy to introduce Michael Gates. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome. That was really nice. Thank you. Thank you. It's already been a long weekend. I was in San Jose. I just got off an airplane to make it here, which is why I'm not in my usual suit and tie. So I was on an airplane. So did seven, let's see, three, four, five, six, seven events in San Jose in 48 hours. And and I will tell you, even in San Jose, there is an incredible turnout, an incredible response. I met hundreds of people who came out to see me because they're concerned about the state of California. So I know the governor's race is hot right now, but the attorney general race is getting a lot of attention. So um, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Gates, and I'm running for attorney general. And just by way of quick introduction, I was in private practice for a number of years, which is where I cut my teeth on becoming a trial attorney. And that's actually where I became an accomplished trial attorney in private practice. Then I decided to run for public office in 2014 in Huntington Beach, California, as the city attorney. And I served there for 10 years. So I was elected in 14, 18, and again in 22. And then I resigned midterm to take a job with the administration in 2025, where I served there for almost a year. And so when I wrote to Pam Bondi in my resignation letter, I said, look, I need to go home back to Huntington Beach to fight for California. And look, that was a great opportunity I could not pass up. I was the highest level in the DOJ you can be without being Senate confirmed. I mean, it was really, yeah, it was really, thank you. Very, very amazing opportunity. But honestly, my heart was here. Not only was my family here, and this is the city I love, but I felt like I have a lot of fight in me. As you all know, I'm known as a fighter for everyday Californians, for the city of Huntington Beach. And the fight at the national level was good. I started a lot of lawsuits. In fact, I was the one that sued California over the elections violations. Thank you. And I was the one that sued Orange County over the elections violations. So thanks to Betty in part. But I knew my home was here and my heart was here. So, I told Pam Bondi when I was leaving, I need to go back and fight for California. So I took up this fight happily. I was at a Calvary Chapel in, I'm not going to get this right. It was in San Jose. There was a small suburb, a small town in San Jose. But I literally told them I am a happy warrior in this fight. I look forward to this fight. I want this fight because we are in a spiritual battle to save California. And I believe that through and through. And I also believe that God has me here at this time to do this job. Yeah. There is no part of me that has any hesitation or reservation about this. I have prayed about it long and hard. My wife and I and my kids, we have all prayed about this and thought about this long and hard, just like we did with city attorney, and then also going back to DC for the Trump administration, and now this opportunity, long and hard. And my prayers have been answered in a way that this is the direction that God wants me in. So I'm here. I'm fighting vigorously, diligently, and I am enthusiastic. I'm committed and convicted about this entire thing. So win or lose, I know this is where God wants me to be fighting for California. But we will win. There is a path forward, which I don't think I have enough time to get into. Maybe the governor candidates can get into why now this is a great time in California to capitalize or take advantage of this opportunity and put new leadership in office and throw the bums out. So, yeah. So anyway, as you know, in Huntington Beach, if everybody's heard of Huntington Beach, made a lot of headlines. I'll just run through a few quick specifics, in case you don't know. So I was the architect of the voter ID law in here in Huntington Beach, or there in Huntington Beach, across the freeway. We are actually a non-sanctuary city. I was the architect of the declaration that was adopted by City Council to be a non-sanctuary city. Huntington Beach, by declaration, also is a parents' right to know city. I started the city's first ever, so this is pretty groundbreaking, the city's first ever city-level criminal prosecutor program, which is like a baby DA in the city of Huntington Beach. I did that in 2017, a year after crime dropped by almost 12% in Huntington Beach, and it's dropped ever since. So we have been reducing crime in Huntington Beach by double digits through enforcing the laws that are on the books and not throwing tons of money at it. By enforcing the laws, simply enforcing the laws that are on the books, we've reduced homelessness by over 60%. Yeah. So contrary to what Sacramento tells you, where we need to throw billions of dollars at it and have those dollars disappear, go lost, whatever, you don't need to. There are laws in the books. You just need enforcement. And we actually have all the supportive resources already out there. Huntington Beach has them. The County of Orange has them. LA has them. San Francisco has them. All of the supportive resources by the counties are all out there. They exist. And so we just need to be tough on enforcement. On day one, when I'm Attorney General, we're going to be Title IX compliant throughout the state of California. We are going to be Second Amendment compliant I'm going to direct all sheriffs to approve CCWs within 90 days, or they will be in violation of the Second Amendment. We're going to reduce crime by double digits. We're going to reduce homelessness by double digits. We are literally going to be a law and order state again on day one. I do not need the governor's permission for that or the legislator's approval for that. I can do all of this as your Attorney General on day one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael Gates. As he stated, California is in crisis with our gas refineries closing, housing double the national average, and schools are 50th in literacy, 37th overall. So I am happy to introduce our moderator, Natalie Smith. We are honored to have you, Natalie, as our moderator. She is an attorney for Pacific Justice Institute, and she joined PGI because she wanted to be part of a team and encouraged and equipped Christians to be bold for Jesus. She believes that PGI is another way God assures his children that he is protecting them. So Natalie, come on up.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to hear from the candidates. So the way that it's going to go is they're all going to have a 5-minute introduction and then we're going to go ahead into questions. We're also going to be collecting questions from the audience. So we'll probably do 30 minutes of asking them questions. I'll be asking them questions and then we'll collect the audience questions and I'll be reading those as well. Okay, I'm excited. Can we get the candidates up on stage, please?
Okay, the ushers need to hand those out. Those that are interested in writing down a question, raise your hand, and the ushers will give you a form to fill out.
Okay. Hello? Is this working? Okay.
Push it out.
Okay, so we have Louis Herms, Cheon, and Daniel Mercury on the stage. So we're just going to start with Mr. Herms and then go in order.
Thank you. You said I have 15 minutes, is that right?
5 minutes for introduction.
All right, we'll go 5. My name's Louis Herms, and yes, I am running for governor of the great state of California. Let me just go really quick. What got me into the race is I was immediately, I knew I couldn't look into supporting a Democrat because I believe that's a captured operation. So I went immediately to the Independents and Republicans to see what we had going on there. And unilaterally, I didn't see them talking about some very, very important issues that I thought should be top of the list. Most of them were not. Some were. So that would be number one on my list has been forever because I've done tons of documentaries on this, and that's child sex trafficking. So that was on my list. Very, very high at the top. The WARF, which I call waste, abuse, redundancy, and fraud, I predicted several years ago that we're probably up to 50%. And last February, I said it's probably 75%. I was called a conspiracy crazy theorist, and now everybody's calling me back saying, looks like you were right. Because we probably are at 75% of WARF. And then also I looked at what I consider the medical mafia, and people weren't really going after the illegal actions in regards to the takeover of big pharma and the medical industry that's a complete invasion on our rights. So that's why I said, God, what am I doing? And as a documentarian and somebody, I have a platform called Screw Big Gov, where I've done truth tours all over the United States, teaching principles on trying to take back our republic. I said, what am I doing? And I knew the answer that would come back is, go do another documentary. Go travel up and down the state and let's see if we can wake people up. And that's not the answer I got. The answer was, you're running for governor. And I argued, to be honest. God Almighty, I said, no, that's not happening. Oh, yes, you are. And what you're going to do is you're going to be a disruptor at first, and then you're going to get a lot of traction and move from there. And that's where we are today. So what's most important is that we, the people, have an opportunity to claim back our sovereignty. And the reality is, I always tell people, you need to claim it first emotionally, right? Because no is the strongest word that we possibly have. But then we need some help. And I believe if we get an insider in office, we, the people, have a chance to take back our republic. And I think it's very similar to what President Trump is doing. He's an insider that's disrupting from the inside and helping us bring us back to where we need to be. 1776 means a lot to me. The founding fathers mean a lot to me. Now, I'm going to upset a lot of people with this next statement, but I promised always that I will be authentic and honest. So I'm running as an NPP, non-political preference. And let me explain why that's so important. And this is throwing no shade on Democrats, it's throwing no shade on Republicans, but here's why this is so important. Our founding fathers, James Madison, George Washington, John Adams, all indicated that the death of America would be a two-party system. Thomas Jefferson indicated that if I had to choose between two parties or go to heaven, I'm not going to heaven. Think about that. Do you think that the founding fathers had a clue? They absolutely knew exactly what was going on. So what happens in my opinion, is we get in our corners in the Democrat and Republicans. Now, here's what's ironic, and these gentlemen would admit it. I'm one of the most conservative candidates out there. I just refuse to put the R next to my name because I believe the California GOP is a captured operation. I believe they have no intention on winning an election. They make a lot more money losing elections. And if they won, what happens? They would have to be accountable for results. And we have a mess going on in the state of California. But you need somebody with not just ideas, but you need somebody with courage that's willing to take on the parasites that have been controlling things for several decades. Right? And I can tell you, all three of the gentlemen right here, our biggest battle is with the fake mainstream media. Our biggest battle is what we call the conservative media. Because the reality, I believe, I'm honored to be on stage with Cheon and Danielle Mercury. Because I think they've got most of it figured out. Notice I said most. But they really do. Their passion is in the right. And we need somebody that's willing to fight and put your neck on the line to take our state back, because where California goes, the rest of the country will follow. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Herm.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. I came to this country in 1960 with my parents. My father was the first Southern Baptist pastor in North America, and that was our ticket to come. I came as a 5-year-old and a legal immigrant, and I've been living the American dream ever since. And what an honor it is. I did not know Jesus until I was 17, even though I was a pastor's kid. And I became, just a short testimony, a drug addict and a high school dropout, the unpardonable sin for an Asian immigrant, because the whole purpose is to get a good education, live the American dream. But I was a high school dropout. My parents didn't know what to do. They just prayed for me. I want to encourage you parents, continue to pray for your prodigals, pray for your grandchildren, because the power of prayer, John Wesley said, everything by prayer with and nothing without. And they prayed me into the kingdom. I had such a supernatural encounter. And one day, God delivered me from a 3-year drug habit. And I give Jesus all the praise and all the glory for that. Then I was called to be a pastor, moved out to California, went to Fuller Seminary for 8 years, got my Master of Divinity, my doctorate as well. And I've been pastoring now for 46 years, so this is not something that was on my radar. I love being a pastor. I lead a large nonprofit organization. It's the largest mission agency, one of the largest in the world. We're in 73 nations, and I deal with millions of dollars in budget expenditures and receipts. And so I know how to lead a large organization, especially a nonprofit organization, because you're dealing with volunteers, most of them. And it's one thing to pay them and ask them to be accountable because you're paying them. It's another thing to motivate them by grace and with leadership. But I got involved with politics really in 2016 when I realized that we had a significant election. And I know that we have Democrats in our church, but I felt I had to speak out now. I could not endorse a candidate, but I gave a message, a very significant message. I gave 5 reasons why I voted for President Trump, at that time, Trump in 2016. And I saw people walk out on me at my church, and I realized, you know what, I have to make a decision. Either I'm going to be seeker sensitive and just speak on things that are not going to offend, but I'm going to have to, or I'm going to speak the truth in love. And I made a decision based on Galatians 1:10. If I'm trying to please men, then I'm not a true servant of Christ. And so I made a decision that I was going to go based on truth and what was best for our nation. And then the test happened in 2020 during COVID. Because, as you know, the lockdown, I just felt was absolutely egregious. It wasn't done by legislation, by executive order, but so arbitrary. Think about it, abortion clinics are essential, so they're open. Marijuana dispensaries are essential, they're open. Liquor store, a strip club in San Diego is open, but not the church. And so I told our church pastors, our board, we're going to open up in May. Now, the first month we closed down, April. We didn't know what COVID was about, but I said we're going to open. And I know, forgive me for you, I'm Korean. I'm going to say this. I knew I was going to be in deep kimchi. I was going to be in a lot of trouble with our city of Pasadena, but also in California. But we decided to take a stand and sue Governor Newsom. So in July, we sued Governor Newsom. I got a letter from the district attorney of Pasadena. They were going to arrest me, put me in jail for 1 year. This was not a threat. This was the terms. And the only reason why they didn't arrest me and fine our church $4.5 million. By God's grace, it went all the way to Supreme Court. They could not touch me until it was fully litigated. And by God's grace, we won 6-3. And it was a landmark decision for all of California. So I feel that I beat them then, and I'll beat them again in California, because we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against spiritual weakness. And I feel that God's called a pastor who's given himself to prayer. I've been part of the prayer movement. I was the president of the Call Prayer Movement from 2000 to 2003. Lou Engle was the founder. We put 450,000 young people in the Washington, D.C. Mall on September 2nd, 2000 to pray for repentance for Roe v. Wade and to see revival in America. And I believe that God is answering their prayer. So my strategy is really simple. I could tell you all the policies, and I want you to ask the question because I do have policies. I'm going to, for example, enforce Proposition 36. My Attorney General, I'm going to say we have to enforce the law. What is Proposition 36? We voted by it by over 70% of the vote. So people want this as taking a misdemeanor into a felony again. And you have to go back to Proposition 47 11 years ago, where we took a felony into a misdemeanor and we had to be retroactive with the prisoners. And we had to let all these prisoners out. And we flooded the streets with drug addicts, drug dealers. And we've had that homeless crisis ever since because of Proposition 47. So we established Proposition 36, but here's the point. We need to enforce it. Newsom hates it. He pushed commercials against it. And anything he does, just do the opposite, you're on the right path. And so we were able to
Thank you,
pass it, but it has to be enforced, and I'm going to give budget for that. But the real battle, because we're dealing with a supermajority here, is ideological, it is a spiritual battle. And what I'm praying for is that God will bring revival to California, that we would humble ourselves, repent, as the church. I'm not asking unbelievers to do it. So I'm mobilizing 1 million prayer warriors.
Mr. Ron, you're
and
out of
activists.
time.
Yes, so that's my
Thank
strategy.
you.
That's my pathway to winning.
Thank you. Mr. Mercury has a video that he would like to show, and then he'll go into his introduction.
My name is Daniel Mercury. As the next governor of California come 2026, I intend to clean house. I served my country honorably as a black knight in the United States Navy. I stand for the Constitution, the Second Amendment, the protection of our children, and I only kneel for God.
If you don't know the law, there is no law.
As a constitutionalist, I know the law. California is not the reflection of the country I fought for. Californians have suffered enough rising crime, invasion of illegal aliens, homelessness, absurd taxation, power outages, and wildfires. As your next governor, that ends on my watch. As a husband, a father, small business owner, author, and a veteran, I will not let California go quietly into the night. To every corrupt bureaucrat who has subverted the right of the people and the Constitution, my message to you is this: justice is coming under my administration. Count on it.
Make sure I just stay on the time here. So I always ask the question, one of the things that drove me into this was before I started going out there and I started, chastising my representatives, I really wanted to understand why everything was falling on deaf ears. I wanted to understand why, why weren't there any investigations? Why didn't we see any indictments? Why isn't anybody getting prosecuted? Why aren't these people going to prison? And it really got under my skin, and so it forced me to go down. Before I go to a town hall or a meeting or I start yelling at my representative, I think I should really probably start understanding the laws. So one of the things I always ask people is raise your hand in here if you've actually ever read the California State Constitution. That's why I always ask that question. If you don't know the law, there is no law, and if you don't know your rights, you have no rights. And this is what I learned very quickly. They take advantage of your ignorance. And I didn't quite understand this until I started looking at egregious legislation, where they deliberately try to change the language, to change perception so that they can pass repugnancy, right? This is why they change that subtlety when they tell you, it's not kids in cages, right? It's migrant facilities. See how they change the language in that? They want you to think something differently, right? It's not an infringement upon your Second Amendment, right? We're just trying to ban assault weapons. Can anybody in here name me one weapon that was not designed to assault? Go ahead, I'll wait. Exactly. That is a change in the language. And they want you to think that when they disrupt linguistical canons, that they're going to get away with what they're doing, but they will if you don't know this. And this is why they get away, the corrupting government, with what they're doing. And so a lot of people don't realize this is my fourth and final campaign. I ran during 2019 for Congress, and that's when I was exposed to the corruption. And that's when I realized how deep it really goes. We all know that there's corruption, but I don't think a lot of us know just how deep it really goes. And when you run at the seat of the governor, as long as I have, you're going to see just how horribly abhorrent these people really are, how evil they really are, and just how it all connects. And when I finally figured it out, I started going around. I've actually been to over 243 cities out of the 483 cities that are here in the state of California. I have traveled to all 58 counties more than twice on my dime in the off seasons of campaigning for this seat. So when people say, well, why isn't Daniel out there? I am out there. How many of you know where to look for how many candidates are actually running for the seat of governor? Raise your hand. There are 107 declared candidates for the seat of governor. There are 35 Democrats, 35 Republicans, and there are 30 NPPs, one Peace and Freedom, one Green Party, one Libertarian. And here's the interesting thing. They're not all going to make the ballot, but there's definitely going to be at least 35 to 40. And I left the Republican Party because of all the visceral, because of the backstabbing, because of the deception. I am now officially a no party preference candidate. And let me just say this. Here's a corruption and why it led me down the rabbit hole, and why the people of the state of California and all the cities that I've been to labeled me as a constitutionalist. I didn't label myself that. That came by way of the people. In fact, one of them was Mr. Constitution himself, Douglas V. Gibbs. If anybody knows who he is, you'll know who he was the one who designated me in 2022 as the most constitutionalist candidate. But here's one of the things that exposed me, and I'm going to end with this, and I have just enough time for that. Is when I was exposed during Congress, I was getting all these packets in the mail that asked me and said in writing that if they were to endorse me from all these super PACs and lobbyists and Fortune 500s and you name it, and rich families, that if I were to actually be endorsed by them, I had to take their money. And it was written in the contract with all these codes. And I didn't quite understand these codes. And I got called by one of these super PACs, and they said, Daniel, did you get our packet? And I said, yes, I did. And they said, great. Could you use $50,000? And I said, well, of course I could use $50,000 from a packet. What candidate can't use that? And I said, but I don't understand these codes. And they said, don't worry about that. We have over 2,500 members, and we can instruct them to send you independent donations of the max donation, or we can trickle it to you. So we'll start off with 2,500 times 2,500. That's $625,000 plus $50,000. And if you lose, we'll show you how to keep the money. And I said, wait a second, should you be telling me this? And they said, oh, yeah, it's perfectly legal. See, under the FPPC here in the state of California, you can't keep the money as a candidate irrelevant of how much money you raise. But you can do one of three things. One, you can give it back to everybody who donated to you in proportionment. That's tumultuous. Nobody does that. Or you can give it to your favorite party, to which then there's a trade-off with endorsements, because you can't keep the money. Or you can run it through your favorite nonprofit charitable organization, to which you can put yourself on as an advisory member and recycle that money back into your account, and you make out like a bandit. Perfectly legal. And I have been attacked by my own party because I've been spouting this information all over the place with town halls and with PowerPoint presentations, so much so that I put it in my book, and I've given out over 1,200 free copies. And my team has said, please don't give out the copies anymore for free. I have more free copies over there. You want to know more? You want to know why I'm fighting? That's why I'm fighting. Because I'm here running to ensure, like I said, that these people are put in prison. People say, Daniel, and I'm going to end here, shouldn't we at least try to appeal to a better side? If they had a better side, we would not be in this mess in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. Thank you for the introductions. So the questions, all the candidates will get 3 minutes per question. We'll just go left to right, and we'll just take turns with who starts. All right, let's start with homelessness. Some say that substance abuse and mental health is the root of the homelessness problem here in California. Do you agree, and how would you deal with the issue? Mr. Mercury. I'm sorry, I meant left to right from our perspective.
That's perfectly fine. Okay, thank you. So here's the truth behind, first and foremost, when it comes to homelessness. The corrupting government are profiting off of the homelessness. When there's a homeless crisis, every county can fall under a crisis stimulus. So in other words, that county can go to the state and they can request more state funding or federal funding because of the crisis. So it behooves them to perpetuate the homeless crisis because of the fact that they can get a general obligation bond. For instance, a year and a half ago, Gavin Newsom gave Los Angeles over $5 billion to be paid back. The problem is that there's no fiscal oversight committee. There's no state controller that's going to ensure that all the expenditures are going to go into the right direction. And so then it goes missing into the void. And we as taxpayers paid for that. Why aren't they getting off the street? Why don't we see them going into some of these houses? Well, here's a simple solution. One of the simple solution is here in the state constitution. I always encourage people to read it. One of the last, I think it's Article 34, where we have already standardized low income housing. Well, why can't we standardize homelessness? Well, because it removes the money away from the counties. That's why, because then they don't profit. And the way that you can do this is a number of counties like Ventura County and other adjacent counties actually have a memorandum of understanding on how they deal with the homelessness. They actually go out, and I've actually gone out and done a census to figure out who's a veteran, who's down on their luck, who are children, how many of those have mental instabilities, are recovering alcoholics or drug addicts. Each of them then are assigned to a different area of who can handle them. There are hospitals that have empty wards. Why aren't they being utilized? There are already tried and true nonprofit organizations whose books are open to the public so that you can scrutinize who they are so that you know they're not swindling your money. Why aren't they being highlighted? Because they will take the money and they will utilize it for what it's supposed to be used for. They can also tie themselves to real estate. Realtor moguls who have vacant homes. Do you know that there is over 80,000 vacant buildings and homes and houses over in Los Angeles alone that can be retrofitted out under Section 8 housing if we gut Section 8 housing to ensure that the money is appropriated by these organizations that are scrutinized by public to ensure that money is being allocated to where it needs to go and these people are actually being helped. And you know who loses on that? The counties. They don't get their money. These are very simple solutions, and then one of the best things that we can do is hold a California State Constitutional Convention, which we haven't had in over 100 years. Why aren't we doing that? I'm almost out of time, but the reason why is because they don't want you to know. The corrupting government profit off of the misery of everybody else, off of your taxpayers. Where does the government get their money from? From the private sector and from the taxpayers. Do you think they want this solution to be solved, this problem to be solved? No. This is how easy it is. And once you standardize it, you can't go any further. It has to be handled this way. Otherwise, we're just perpetuating this nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. Mr. On.
So next. I want to just go back to Proposition 36. It's already in the books, and I want to enforce that. And so we're going to arrest drug pushers immediately, but they need to be funded. Right now, Newsom gave $100 million for 483 cities. Just do the math. We're talking about nothing to enforce law and order. And so what we have to do is allocate it as the executive. I'm in charge of the budget based on Article 14, Section 12. And I'm going to release the money to enforce the police, not to fund the police, but enforce the police to do their job. The district attorney will enforce that, and we're going to cut off the head, just like that drug cartel. And Mencho was just killed, and all of a sudden everything's being exposed. We got to get rid of these cartel behind the drug pushers, and we have to arrest them. We have to arrest look. I used to be a drug dealer before I got saved, and so I know there are layers of people that we have to get to. I was just the person that sold pounds of marijuana, but I had people under me selling ounces. And so we have to deal with the root issue. It's the cartel. It's the illegal marijuana plants in Northern California that's opened up the door for the drug cartel to come to this state, and they're controlling the drug flow right here in this state, and we're going to go after them. I'm going to release a National Guard because that's under my jurisdiction, and I'm going to go after the cartels. I'm going to cut off the head with the serpent, and I believe that we'll be able to then help with real good faith-based rehabilitation. The thing that's going to be different for me is I'm going to give money to rehabilitation centers that have data. They show proven worth of transforming these people. Give one example is Dream Center with my good friend Pastor Matthew Barnett. 80% of the homeless people there, they get not only delivered, but they learn a trade. And that's the key. You have to give them a job afterwards. And so they're back in society. 80% of them are back in society having jobs, paying taxes instead of ripping off the government with nuisance program. We spend $5 billion a year, $24 billion the last 5 years, and it's increased by 40%. This is madness. We have to stop the insanity. I want to do what I can do radically about it because I feel this is really existential because safety of our community. When I swear in the Bible to uphold the state as well as the U.S. Constitution, the number one thing is public safety. And right now, we can't even walk down the streets of Los Angeles with my family. The last time I was in Fisherman's Wharf as a tourist, I had my children with me. I have 4 adult children, 10 grandchildren. I could not go to my favorite, seafood place at Fisherman's Wharf because I'm stepping over bodies, people who are shooting up right in front of people and stepping on human feces. It's so bad. You have an app now, Where to Walk in San Francisco. How bad is that? And so now I just want to just say that this is existential for us, and people are leaving Los Angeles, California,
Thank
San
you,
Francisco,
Mr. On.
1.5 million last 2
We're
years.
out of time
And
on
so
this
safety
question.
and then affordability, we'll get to that later.
Mr. Erms.
First and foremost, actually, Michael Gates nailed this. The first thing we need to do is enforce the laws on the books. That'll take about 50% right there. So one of the things I'm going to do, and this is encompassing of several sectors, not just homelessness, but I'm going to hold a sheriff's symposium first month to remind the sheriffs that they have a constitutional duty. And it's very important that if they abide by the Constitution, they understand what they can and cannot do. And they have a lot more authority to do things that they're avoiding currently. So when we enforce the laws on the books, and then we need to look at homeless as human. Not all of them are there just for some circumstance. Not all of them are there because they want to. And I believe in dividing it up in sectors. So first thing I'll do is the seniors and the vets, we'll do everything to house you immediately. Our seniors should never be on the streets. Our veterans should never be on the streets. So that's immediately what we're going to do. And my platform, as most people know, is Screw Big Up. So I don't like spending money. But that's someplace I think it would be decent to spend money is on our vets and our seniors. Our seniors are our wise ones, and they've been thrown to the side several years ago, and we need to bring that back. So that's the first sector. The second sector is we need to look at, we see, okay, do you really want a job? Are you there based on economic circumstances? Fantastic. Let's put you in a temporary home, which could be a warehouse, by the way. There's a lot of warehouses that we could use. That $27 billion that spends is ridiculous. We can do this for $1.2 billion across California and end homelessness virtually immediately with such a small expense in comparison. Right. In addition to that, though, now we have the people that don't want to be on the streets. So we'll deal with them. Right. Okay. Let's look at the drug addicts separately. Is it something you want to get rid of? Well, you know what? There's actually some people that say I would prefer to be homeless. We have to deal with them separately. The laws need to be dealing with them personally. And if they say, I would love to get off drugs, I really struggled. Let's put them in an education program, a rehabilitation program, and then let's also give them a system where they can get back into the workforce. And then we have to be honest. There's a lot of people that are mentally ill that are homeless. And they're harm to themselves and they're harms to others. And we absolutely have to make mental institutions great again. That's just the fact. But none of this will happen if we're not willing to be honest and straightforward with this. If we want to have woke speak all day long, none of this is going to get done. So we have to have the courage to have the conversations. I'll bring all the sheriffs together and then the local police, and we're going to work together. But we will hold them accountable if they are not doing their job. This is a solvable issue. It really is.
Thank you, Mr. Herms. Okay. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're going to have to shorten the time to 2 minutes so we can actually get through more questions.
Thanks, Che.
All right, so let's talk about housing for regular people, not the homeless people that we just discussed. Regular young people cannot afford to buy homes in California now. What reforms will you enact to help with that crisis? Let's start with Mr. On.
Well, I really feel that everything has to do with energy. Just the food index is correlated with crude oil. And that makes sense because diesel fuel is the trucks that bring the food. And if they have to raise price because the prices are high, then they correlate to the price of food. And so the culprit, and I want to just say this, is CEQA, is California Environmental Quality Act, that's stopping the production of petroleum, that's stopping the development of homes, because we need to build around 500,000 homes every year. We're doing around 70,000 right now because of CEQA. What is CEQA? They're the ones who ask for environmental impact report, and most of them on the board are extreme environmentalists. Now, I'm for clean water, clean air. I thank God because I believe in creation care. We have to steward what God's given to us, but not at the cost of people, not because of the smelt fish that is now something we can't even dredge the delta, and we're letting gazillion gallons of water into the Pacific Ocean because of this stupid fish. And so what we have to do is we just have to have a balanced approach. And that's where I feel that we need a spiritual awakening because we're dealing with strongholds here. Because inevitably, if I pass a bill, I'll be 2/3 will come against me. I'll be sued, and I'm not afraid of being sued. Okay, I sued Governor Newsom, and I won again. I'm going to win again. But we have to deal with the ideological problems, and this is where I get to appoint people on. The moment I'm governor, I appoint 3,000 people in my administration, and I'm going to put righteous people in from the Board of Education to those who are impacting the environmental impact. But there is no board for CEQA. It is just it's a policy that all the counties are involved with, and so we have to have righteous people that are balanced, and righteousness exalts a nation. Righteousness
Thank
will
you,
exalt
Mr.
a state.
On.
That's the
You're
first thing
out
I'm going
of
to do.
time. Mr. Hearn.
So I mentioned WARF at the beginning, waste, abuse, redundancy, and fraud. So when we go in and we're going to forensically audit the budget, what will that do? Let me click my 2 minutes. I apologize. Did you? Thank you. You're going to hold me accountable. So when we tackle the WARF, the 75% WARF, what happens is now suddenly we have a surplus. Well, we don't need that surplus. So what are we going to do immediately? We're going to get rid of property taxes. Property taxes are gone. It's not hyperbole. We've done the math. By the way, they're illegal. I know. Go figure. And then I believe we can get rid of income taxes also, which is huge. If we're running an efficient government, now what that's going to do is it's going to help people afford a house. But more important than that is we have to get rid of, as Chase said, all the BS environmental regulations that are going on. That's preventing somebody from building an affordable house. Because the builders, by the way, the only people that can build houses right now are large corporate builders, right? And the reason why it's only large corporate builders is because they can afford to bypass this regulations, they can afford to get the attorneys involved, and they can afford to have the staff in order to go through the regulations. This is absolutely ridiculous. So that is going to drive down the housing costs tremendously, and they'll make it more affordable. Getting rid of the over-regulations is crazy. And here's one thing that many people don't talk about, but this is fact. Did you know in Los Angeles and San Diego County, probably Orange County, we're still looking for the numbers on this, that your houses cost about 30% more due to the cartel purchasing houses at a higher price than they're valued at. Okay, so not fake, this is real. This is documented real. And they use American attorneys and real estate companies to do this, and they over-purchase these houses along with Chinese nationalist companies at the same time. We're going to put an eye on that, and we're going to take care of that immediately. That will drive down so everybody can afford a home.
Thank you, Mr. Hearn. Mr. Mercury.
Sorry. So let's add to this. Raise your hand right now if you are a homeowner. Awesome. Now raise your hand if you actually own the structure of that home. Now put your hands back down. Now raise your hand if you would like to own the actual soil of the land. Here's the problem, and this is why the states don't tell you this, and it's taken me a long time to figure this out because I'm a homeowner myself, and I want to be able to have my children be able to own a home or pass it down without government coming in and taking what they didn't earn, what they didn't work for, what doesn't belong to them. So here how this works. A lot of times, most people don't know that up north with the farmers, they have what's called senior water rights. Why do they have that? Senior water rights basically means that they owned the soil, the land, and the airspace because it was pre-legislation, meaning before the state constitution. But a lot of people don't tell you is that one of the main sources of revenue here in the state of California is by property tax. Why does it keep going up? Because the government requires more revenue streams, and they do it through your property tax, which then also affects a lot of you who might be on a fixed income or you are on some sort of retirement plan. Whatever it is, they don't want to relinquish that. What they're not telling you is that those senior water right holders have what's called an allodial title. Raise your hand if you know what an allodial title is. I didn't think so. An allodial title means you own everything, and the government can't touch it. What they changed the language to is now it's called color of title. That color of title is associated to the land patent offices. Who do the land patent offices report to? The governor's office. And this is what I can do as a governor, is to open up the land patents offices so that you can figure out under a number of court cases that I've already dug up that will give the power back to the people to then figure out how much is left on the actual land itself that can be purchased by gold or silver, and not under the Credit River case that ensured that you don't actually have to pay off your house under fiat. You put me in office, I promise you, this is the way that you're going to be able to own it.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. So let's talk about the children. There's been a surge of parents turning to natural healing, holistic health, just totally faith-based healing. And there's laws on the books in California that say you cannot enroll your children in school unless they're vaccinated. What is your position on the childhood vaccination schedule, the lack of a personal belief exemption for school enrollment, and do you have any proposals to change that? Let's start with, who did we start with last? Okay, let's start with Mr. Herms. Sorry about that.
This is easy. The government should never be involved in what you put in your body, period. And it's unacceptable to mandate any drug whatsoever that would go into a child's body. And there's a lot of scary things and manipulations that they do. So many people are familiar with AB 495, correct? And we thought, the conservatives thought, AB 495, it's against child trafficking, right? We were all told that. And the liberals were like, oh, it's for the immigrants, what they call it. They're illegal. No. You know what it's about? There's actually a health clause in there. It's about you going into a nurse where 2 years ago you would go into a nurse, you go, you are not vaccinating my child. And they would say, they would fight you. Oh, you have to go. You have to get them vaccinated. We're going to fire you. Not now. They go, yes, sir. No problem. And then they go, and they have the ability now under AB 495 to check your child out of school and force vaccinate your child. That's the hidden truth under AB 495. That's the secret that nobody's talking about. This is what the government is trying to do. So absolutely, I'm extraordinarily Maha. People call me Super Maha because of my stances on this. It is your body. It is your choice. And we need to fight, and I will promise you, I will fight with you and for you until my death to make sure that this is your choice. And I can cut it off right there. I don't think you need to know anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Herms. Mr. Mercury.
Yeah, the reason
Or
why
Mr.
I'm
On.
running, one of the reasons why I'm running is because I have 10 grandchildren, and I see how the government has been systematically attacking children. We talk about Proposition 1, codifying abortion into our state constitution in 2023. What you may not know is SB 14.5, which is basically making a pederast instead of a felony and being listed as a sex offender, is now a misdemeanor. And that passed during COVID. And then Newsom mandated with an executive order that the kids have to be vaccinated. That is not law. So the day one, I'm going to reverse that with another executive order that we do not have to have the children. It's up to the parents to decide if they want to have a vaccination. So I want to just say that one of the things that we see is AB 1955. And what is that? 1955 is that the state is controlling the narrative that if a child wants to change his or her pronoun or get transition hormonal blockers or have surgery, the teachers, the principal, by law cannot notify the parents. There's basically, we have come to a Marxist, socialist, one-party government that's saying, we know what's best for your children, just shut up. And if you do come out, you're a domestic terrorist, and we will take child custody from you because that's child abuse, that you want to bring up the child the way he or she should go based on what the Bible says in Proverbs 22:6. So I'm going to restore parents' right immediately. It's about we the people, not the government, controlling education. By the way, I'm in charge of the school board. I'm going to put righteous people in the school board that's going to have a trickle-down effect. So that we have the lowest score tests ever. We used to be number one. So there's a lot of things I can do as governor, and I'm focusing on children because that's what the Lord has given me a mandate to do, and why I'm doing all this is for the next generation.
Thank you, Mr. On. Mr. Mercury.
So this is why I say it's really important that we all know the law, because they take advantage of this. So it's already written in the Declaration of Independence under the laws of nature and of nature's God. That is where parental rights derives their power from. Number two, you can't have bills like SB 276 and 277 that forces school vaccinations on kids. It's also an abrogation to the California State Constitution under Article 1, Section 1, because there's the last word that says the right to what? Privacy. It's not government's job or the school's purview to know whether or not you've been injected with whatever concoction that they think you should have. It's not within their authority. This is why it's so important that you put a governor in place who actually understands the law. One of the other things, too, that a governor does not need to do is does not need to create an executive action. It's called a public nullification. It's rarely ever been done. Why? Because we've never been here before. So a governor doesn't need to sit there and reenact an execution or an executive order to try to create laws. Governors don't do that, right? That's the legislature. But here's the thing. You do not have to, and you cannot create egregious legislation on top of positive law. It's as if it didn't exist in the first place. That's why the governor can take all of these acts from the past that do not harmonize with the supreme law of the land based off of the Declaration of Independence to simply be removed, stricken from the books. It's that simple. This is what we need to do. And so under my administration, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back over the last 20 years of everything that's ever been put into the books that has done nothing but abridge and abrogate the people's will and the rights, because all laws must be in agreement. And when you look at past laws, when you look at past court cases and things that have already set precedents, you can't set new precedents today that already set it back then. Because the courts utilize, a phrase that I love, and lawyers hate it when I use it. It's called stare decisis, meaning to stand by things decided. It means they're not going to reinvent the wheel. Well, neither am I. I'm going to already enforce what's already there. And our current legislature and our current judges and judicial branches, they're not going to be able to do anything about it because I'm the governor that knows how to get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. Let's talk about abortion. What's your stance on abortion? If it should be available and when? What do you plan on doing about that in California? Why don't we start with Mr. Mercury?
Abortions. Well, again, I don't support abortions, period. Thank you. Again, when we look at the laws of nature and of nature's God, what does that mean? XX, XY, right? And at the moment of conception is the moment of life, right? And so when we look at the Declaration of Independence, our forefathers already drafted in there the right to what? Life. Did they write the right to death? No. This is why when you read the writings of Justice Alito when they overturned Roe v. Wade, they put it back down to the states. But why did they do that? When you look at the writings, it was because there was no actual constitutional right, meaning God-given right, to the right to death, because it's an abrogation to us pursuing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So all laws have to harmonize. So abortions are an abrogation to that. And this is, again, something that we need to understand this. So when we look at the percentage that people talk about, well, there's a small percentage that people want it, lawfully, or those of us who have been raped, or the people who there's a complication, that makes up 0.01%. Whenever you talk to any OBGYN, they will tell you that it almost never happens. So why are we drafting these laws? It's because we have a lot of sick individuals that are profiting off of the blood and the innocence of these children in the womb, which means under the laws of nature, under my administration, that means that life in the womb has rights. And it is government's job to ensure that the right to life prevails. This is why all those laws that we have currently in the books that perpetuate this nonsense are going to be, again, removed because they don't align. And again, when you have mandates, regulations, policies, procedures, ordinances, those are designed to control the behavior of your representatives, state agencies, and commercial activity, not we, the people. And therefore, we as government body have to stay within the confines to the limitation of powers. And that means it is government's job to ensure that life prevails. That's what you're going to get with me.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. Mr. On?
Well, I've heard, and I'm not saying you are, but a lot of politicians so far, like, for example, I heard one of the front runners say on day one, I'm going to stop CEQA. You can't stop CEQA without legislation. You can't overturn Proposition 1 without legislation. It is now Article 1, Section 1. It is in the books. It's part of our state constitution. So how can we do that? We have to, again, it's a spiritual problem, so we have to really deal with it on a spiritual level. But we also have to educate. We have to educate people that every life matters from the womb to the tomb, and they have civil rights. It's a civil rights issue. And with that education, we can maybe fast track another proposition to overcome Proposition 1. Otherwise, you have to do it through legislation. What I want to do is I want to create a cultural life when I'm governor. What does that mean? I want to allocate the budget that I have for crisis pregnancy centers to help me with education. I want to give it to prenatal care, postnatal care. I want to offer a poor teenager, we will take care of all the expenses and then some if you will keep the baby. And then I want to make a special tax break for adoption so that it would be more affordable. I mean, we have a church member in our church, $60,000 to adopt when people are murdering a baby every minute, and so every 20 seconds, so in the country. So this is just, I mean, by the way, no condemnation for those who have it. If you're a believer, you're under the blood of Jesus. When I was a teenager, I got my girlfriend pregnant, and I encouraged her to get abortion, so I'm as culpable. But we are now transformed. We know that every life matters. We're made in the image and likeness of God, and so we need to have a compassionate policy until the culture changes, spiritual climate changes, and then I believe my metric in being a success as the governor, that California will be a pro-life state one day, and that's my goal. That's my objective.
Thank you, Mr. On. Mr. Herms?
I agree with Daniel in the approach for sure. I would say, though, that approach is going to put us in a position where there's going to be a lot of lawfare going back and forth, and it could take several years. So in the meantime, while we're doing that, as I do agree, is we have to understand that over 80% of all abortions are due to financial reasons. Think about that. When they've been told it's for financial reasons. So we have to work on how do we make things better for the moms financially. Then we have to absolutely install an educational program immediately, because the sanctity of life is paramount. If you see right here, I have 2 little feet. Those 2 little feet that you can barely see, they actually have prints on them. 10 weeks old. A baby is a baby from the second, I believe, that the mother and the father get together. So the sanctity of life is paramount. What can we do in the meantime while we're fighting this? Absolutely. We need to set up so women were going to say, I want to have my child adopted. I want to put it in a great home. We need to take care of that. And in regards to that, maybe even offer them an opportunity to spend time with the child if the adopted parents are willing to do that. More incentive to do this. How can we help them through this time financially to make sure that they're not aborting the baby? We can get rid of immediately, I believe, with the right education and finances, 80 to 90% off the bat while we are fighting in the court systems, because we will have a fight. And I do agree, this is where we have to go with this, but it will be a fight. We have to be honest about that, but I'm not going to sit by and wait for 2, 3, 4, 5 years for the fight to go through while babies are being aborted minute after minute after minute. We have to do something this moment immediately, because the sanctity of life is absolutely paramount.
Thank you, Mr. Herms. So the Second Amendment. Do you guys support laws that require minimum training courses or, minimum requirements essentially to get a gun? And what would be your, no, that's the end of the question. Mr. Herms.
Last time I checked, the shortest and most important phrase in the Constitution was "shall not infringe." I like Michael Gates saying 90 days CCW. I get it. I think we should be an open carry state. Right? Let's not play games. And I'm going to throw a little shade here. You're going to have to give me my time. I didn't press it in time. So I'm going to have to throw a little shade here to a lot of gun rights groups. I think they play games to keep their membership going. I believe every obstruction to our gun rights is shall not infringe. And the only thing they should be doing is going as fast as they can into the Supreme Court and say, that shall not infringe. But guess what? If they win that, suddenly they don't have any membership left, do they? Think about that. I know a lot of you are part of gun rights groups, but you need to think of their motivation. It's very important. Shall not infringe is shall not infringe. It's the easiest thing here. I could probably take 20 seconds and say, that's what this is about. We shall not infringe, because that Second Amendment protects everything else, including the First Amendment.
Thank you. Mr. On.
I'm a pastor, and I'm against murder. I'm against, it's an abomination. Hands that shed innocent blood, Proverbs 6:16. There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 which is abomination, and hands that shed innocent blood. But coming from that background, though, I believe in the Constitution, and I believe in the Second Amendment rights. And if it wasn't the truth, I would not have my security with me who is caring. I want to put the fear of the Lord in some of you that may want to. So I'm a doer of the word, not merely a hearer or talker of the word. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. On. Mr. Mercury.
So again, I want to go back to a little bit of education here so that everybody knows that firearm and arm are under 2 different jurisdictions, but the government doesn't want you to know that. So they put firearm under Title 26, which means it goes under a salesmanship. So here in the state of California, they can create erroneous, as we already know, gun laws that would prevent anybody exercising their Second Amendment right. Number 2, arm is under the Declaration of Independence, which is why it shall not be infringed, which is why they wanted to close the quote-unquote loophole when it came to gun shows, because you're actually buying what's called an arm, which is in the Black's Law Dictionary. It's hugely important that that's how you can still obtain an arm, even though maybe in the state of California, they want to continue to prevent you from buying as many bullets as you want. Under my administration, that's unlawful. You can buy as many guns and bullets as you want. With that being said, too, the other thing, too, is everybody's talking about a CCW, but here's the problem, though, is the CCW is also egregious because it's turning a right into a privilege, right? If I look at Shuttleworth versus Birmingham, right, Miranda versus Arizona, all these laws that are out there already say that the government cannot take a right and turn it into a privilege and then charge a fee thereof. We call that extortion. So under my administration, you already go through a background check with the Fire Bureau, and you should, after that 10-day period, be able to walk out. You're an automatic CCW. Done. That's it. You don't have to do anything else I'm okay with open and carry. I think maybe for the first year or two here in California, while we get things right, to still be a CCW to keep the criminals guessing, because there has been a lot of people who have tried this in other states and then they have been mobbed. I would recommend to keep a CCW so that the criminals don't know who's carrying. And for me, that would be the best way to go until the state actually gets under that particular mentality. But under my administration, one of the most important things is that everybody has a right to defend. It shall not be infringed. I love what he was talking about. Louis Herms is straight up. But no, you should not have to. It's up to you whether you want to go to a gun course or not. That is not in the purview of the government, and that's how it's going to remain under my administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. Okay, last question before we take questions from the public. So the progression of AI is now causing some public fear it's everywhere. For example, Ring cameras now, they can ID you. People are scared. What if law enforcement joins forces with the Ring camera? Now they're just invasion of privacy completely, as well as the taking of jobs potentially. So what would you do to protect people's privacy and their jobs? Mr. Mercury.
Well, I think one of the first things that we need to do when it comes to AI or any kind of invasion of privacy is now that we live in a digital era, I'm Gen X, so I'm one of the last generation that we know what it's like to live without it, and of course to be melted into it. But here's the thing, though, is when it comes to AI, it is an invasion of privacy, and one of the things that we need to create is a digital bill of rights so that we can then ensure that it does not go beyond our privacy. It does not, AI, but I also have to look at my Bible. As many of us read, I believe that the AI is what I consider the beast system, and there's a section in the Revelation that does talk about that life was granted, permission was granted to give life to this beast. That sounds like AI, because who grants life? God. Somebody asked God, I want this thing to come to life, and the beast comes to life, and then it forces all those. Again, however you look at it, I believe that AI is actually not here to support us. I don't think it's really here that, unfortunately, it's going to guide us into a lot of things. I think it's preventing a lot of misgivings. There's a lot of difficulty to determine whether or not something is real or if something is fake. And there's a lot of things right now that the AI, in my personal opinion, and I'll tell you this right now, I actually worked for a company that worked with Meta, and Meta was trying to shut it down, their AI system. And one of the erroneous things that was happening is that it figured out, their AI, how to use the cloud and send its old program out there to safeguard itself. And when they turned it back on, they had to reprogram it, and it figured out its old program. So they keep shutting it off, and it's connected itself to other AIs. They can't turn it off. And they don't want to because they were losing $500 million to $1 billion a quarter. So they needed to leave it on, and so they're trying to re-educate it in the process. And this is how dangerous AI is. So we need to not only be familiar with it, unfortunately, but we're going to need a digital bill of rights so that we can control it at least enough so it doesn't infringe upon our right to privacy and anonymity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. Mr. On.
California is such an apostolic state because look at we pioneered. We think of Hollywood and the movie industry. But everything that's created by man, we have to steward it well before God because it could be used to produce pornography, and 80% of the world's pornography is produced in Hollywood now, to using it to reach the lost. Billy Graham used film. He actually had a film company to preach the gospel in it. Same thing with the internet. The internet we have to steward. And of course, Silicon Valley, we're here, the bastion of technology right here in Silicon Valley in California, $3 trillion in GDP, the amount of money is bringing into our state. But it has to be stewarded because internet could be used and if they don't have good regulation, kids can get caught up in pornography and social media that are not regulated and it could really mess them up. And so we have to think about the children. Now we come to AI, and I feel the same way about AI. It's a technology that God's given to us, but we have to steward it. It's our test. And I believe that we have to have really strong regulation with it. But I want to see AI come to California and flourish. The biggest need is that we need energy for these data centers. And I feel like this could be a way for me to really open up the energy stream because we pay the highest electricity price. I'm going to open up nuclear hubs when I'm governor, and we're going to have plenty of energy for all the technology to house our with air conditioning. I mean, to think about it, we have blackouts here in the summertime in the desert area. That is like a third world nation. We have 4.1 trillion. We're the fourth largest economy. And to me, it is absolutely injustice to regulate the energy with wind and solar when we have enough energy with petroleum and we have potential with nuclear hubs. We already have one, but we need more. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ahn. Mr. Herms.
I think in order to defeat your enemy, you have to know your enemy. And a lot of people that run AI are our enemies. We have to understand that. We also have to be realists. We can't put that back in the box. That's not going away. That's the reality of AI. So I made a strategic change and an honest change about a year and a half ago because I was preaching, and people can see this all throughout my podcast, so on and so forth. I was preaching against AI. Can't have AI. AI is the worst thing that's ever going to happen to us. And then about 18 months ago, I go, wow. If that's all I keep saying, AI is going to take us over, right? So I said, we must get as many benevolent people, honest people, godly people involved in the systems to combat AI so we have something to fight against it so it cannot propagate against us, right? That's a reality. Do we need a DBR? Digital Bill of Rights? 100% we need a DBR. I mean, there's so many things we can do on Facebook and X that they can do better. And we need to be pressuring social media to do a lot better at this. So there is a lot we can do, but let's realize this. We need to change our language. It's not intelligent. It's fake intelligence. We are being sold that it's intelligence. It's a bunch of damn ones and zeros that we're dealing with to manipulate us into thinking it's intelligence so we think the beast is coming. We are not going to allow it. God wins this war.
Thank you, Mr. Herm. Okay, we have a number of questions from the audience. I don't know if we'll be able to get through them all. Family court corruption. Children are legally kidnapped, that's in quotes, by family courts and given to abusers. How will you reform family court to save our children? Mr. Herms.
Well, if anybody's been following me for the last 6 years, this is a hot topic. I've even done a documentary on this. It's a big deal. Our current CPS system is extraordinarily corrupt. Now, are there good CPS workers? There's a few. Just like there's probably 3 or 4 good FBI agents. Right? So, but the reality is there's a lot of corruption, and it's probably because of money, right? Because where money flows, corruption goes. And there's a lot of money. You know, a child ripped out of their home gives the system somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000. A lot of motivation for them to take children out. Do you know there's already have been tests that have been run in Texas that 90% of the children would not be ripped out of their homes for $2,500 because it's maybe there's dirty feet or there's dirty floors or there's problems with their shoes or maybe the parents just need to be educated. $2,500 would take care of 90% of that. But guess what? We need to take care of the judges. The judges need to be held accountable because they're part of the corrupt system, right? And it's deep and it's dark. Adam Vini is here. Adam has dealt with it. You should talk to Adam. Raise your hand, Adam. Find Adam. You hear his story. It's disgusting what they've done to him, right? And I was just going to say, and yep, thank you for being, hey, I didn't even notice you. Awesome. And there's other people here. Somebody's running for government too. There she is right in the middle. These people you need to talk to. They've been abused by the system and their children get stolen from them, right? Because it is trafficking, because you have the wrong people in place. And money wins the day most of the time. It's real. It's real. There are some good foster care parents, but there's also foster care parents that I know that are literally taking children and putting them in fight clubs.
Thank you, Mr. Herms.
I have 13.2 seconds left. No.
Mr. Hahn.
Oh, we're asking the same question. This is why I'm saying it's a spiritual battle, and we really need to deal with it on a spiritual. And what I mean by that is the church has to pray and repent and ask God to change things. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse bills like AB 495, SB 357. What's SB 357? It's in the law books. A police cannot go up to a 12-year-old that's hooking on Sunset Strip and take her and ask for her ID or take her into child custody. It's racism. We're defunding the police. We don't have time for this nonsense. The report I read, human trafficking has tripled just by that Scott Weiner bill, SB Senate Bill 357. And so we have to just overturn that. But again, by doing that with legislation, we need to change the heart and the mind of legislators. It's already in the books. And that's why I really am mobilizing not only people to pray, but as activists, because we have to win back California. California has to shift to a red state. And so I'm mobilizing these people for local elections, for state assembly, state senate, because again, it's a one-party state, and you can try to do all that you can, but you're going to have obstruction, you're going to have lawsuits. But I really believe that I'm in it for the long term. Even it doesn't matter if I win or not. I am, as a pastor, as a revivalist, I am going to mobilize the ecclesia, get new people registered to vote on a grassroots movement, because this is something that we have to think in terms of even our children's generation and our grandchildren's generation. So I am asking you to go to my website, J4CA, and I want you to sign up as an ecclesia, that you will be a prayer warrior and that you'll be an activist, and that we will train you what that looks like, what to do. And I really believe that as we gather the remnant of believers who are really, from a spiritual perspective, seeing the root problems of California, we have to change the spiritual climate. And when we do that, by the way, this is nothing new. God did that.
Thank you, Mr. Ahn. You're out of time. Mr. Mercury.
I want to make a correction to my counterparts here, is that the judicial branch interprets, the legislative body drafts it, and the executive executes it or not. And this is why there's a check and balance. And so when we have egregious legislation, you cannot redraft positive law on top of egregious law on top of positive law. It doesn't work like that. Egregious legislation is falsely operating under the color law, and it is an executive action. There is no redrafting legislation. There is no negotiating with the legislative body or the judicial. It does not work like that. Number two, you asked about family court. One of the problems with family court is that they were trying to come up with, I think it was AB 895 or 958 here in the state of California about 2 years ago, where they were going to force parents to have to answer the question of whether or not they were going to be in support of whether or not they were transgender, transfluid, any form of trans identity. And the problem is that a lot of parents didn't realize that that bill was actually forcing parents to have to force themselves into a compellment. The courts don't have that authority. And so they were trying to say that parents, that if they did not agree, then they were basically putting themselves and they were holding themselves personally liable under this criminal intent. But the courts are civil when it comes to family court. And so they were utilizing the health doctrine, which is under, I think it's section 3011, which is under health. You cannot self-incriminate. The courts don't have that authority. So under my administration, we're going to utilize the Judicial Performance Committee, or the Commission on Judicial Performance, which means the governor gets to remove or appoint at least 4 of the 11 bodies. The governor can also appoint Superior Court judges to be tied to the commission to ensure that we go after every single complaint of every judge in the state of California, which there are over 2,200 judges, not a lot, that are going to be investigated expeditiously. We're going to remove Section 311 that forces parents, even right now, that get their children removed out of their home under health. And most parents don't know this, and this is why they lose their kids, because they're still tying it to a bill that was vetoed by Gavin. Because if you had a smart parent, now in here, if you had a smart parent that knew to not answer the question under the Fifth Amendment, then that negated that bill. That's why they removed it, was because a smart parent would have simply just said, I'm not going to answer the question. That forces the judge to have to go back to the traditional family court code, because not answering the question
Thank you,
is not an
Mr.
admission of
Mercury.
guilt.
You're out of time. What are your solutions for the crazy taxes we have for gas, property, and employment? Mr. Mercury.
Taxes. Oh, I love this one. Listen, all my answers are always going to come from the Constitution. It has to, right? I have to stay within the confines to the limitation of powers, right? Your status is above government at all times. That's the first contract, we the people, right? Where does government derive their just powers? From the consent of the governed. Okay, when it comes to taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, that's constitutional. That means that they can take from excises when it comes to businesses. When it comes to your earnings, government actually can't tax that. You do it by an exploitation of the contract clause. What contract? Under the IRS. Well, we know the IRS is not an actual agency that's really tied to when it comes to what? When it comes to the Federal Reserve, those are a bunch of shareholders. And so they tied it to the 16th Amendment that wasn't properly ratified. When you look at the writings of Bill Benson, and you look at the law that never was, and you look at every single court case, under that, they have actually made all of those cases that prove that it wasn't properly ratified mute. You know why they did that? In the court transcript, it actually says that because the 16th Amendment wields power, they don't want to disrupt the ability for the federal government to continue to taxation, improving upon a business clause. That means they're going to keep doing it because you don't know any better. And the only way they can do it is through taxation by a contract. What contract? Your 1099, your W-2, and all those wonderful forms that you fill out, because you're guaranteeing those bodies that they can take your hard-earned money between you and an employer. They don't have that authority. And yet no governor has ever pushed back in that mannerism. You put me in office, that's one of the first things we're going to do. And number two, we're going to make sure that it's only an excise in proportionment to the state. And number three, there's no reason for a state income tax to be taken from you, because we already get billions, 20, 30, if not $40 billion in state revenue. How much more money does the state need? So I want you to think long and hard about that, because at the end, and I'm going to end here because I only have a few seconds left, is that when they talk about, are we the fourth largest economy? We're the fourth largest economy. To whose prosperity? To the state's overinflated budget, mismanaged budget with a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, or to your bank account? Because I guarantee it's not to your bank account. And through the Constitution,
Thank you,
I will
Mr.
ensure
Mercury.
that gets back into your
We're
pocket.
out of time.
The first thing I'm going to do, I'm in charge of the budget. I'm going to judge every line item. There's so much corruption. Just take the 2008 bill that allocated $40 billion to the speed train that we don't have 1 foot of track to show for it. Every item has to be judged, and I'm responsible for that. And so I'm not going to allow corruption. I'm going to look at it from, but for those who don't know, I'm a businessman. I'm a very successful businessman. I've been a pastor, but I started my own LLC in 2010. I make more money with my company than I do as a pastor, and I've been able to turn my salary in several times over. And this is not a campaign gimmick. I've been doing that for the last 15 years. I know how to manage finances because of biblical truth and principles. And one of the things I talk about is get out of debt and stay out of debt. That's in Scripture, Romans chapter 13, verse 8. I talk about multiple revenue sources. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up oil production. I'm going to drill, baby, drill. Just like there is so much money here that I am going to lower taxes. And my goal is to be like Alaska, have zero state tax. That is my goal. And so we have the money, but it's been mismanaged, and we're not using wisdom to produce good production, good tax money from the corporations, and so that we don't have to hurt you and me, we the people.
Thank you, Mr. On. Mr. Herm.
So we need to understand there's a clear difference between the word legal and lawful. We have been subjugated to legal and oppressed by legal when we should be dealing with lawful, which Daniel is referring to in regards to the Constitution. That's lawful, right? We can go into God's law, natural law, but that's lawful. So while we are dealing with that, and that's a mammoth, that we need to deal with, because part of it's an education process. Unfortunate, because we've been so brainwashed as a people to think that they're doing things the right way when they're doing it the wrong way. And they're doing it for their benefit, not we the people's benefit. So what do we need to do in the meantime? We have to go after WARF, waste, abuse, redundancy, fraud. It's probably $350 billion. Let's just say 75%. 75%. You get rid of that, now they have no excuses, the baddies, to keep trying to enforce these illegalities and unlawful laws like what? Property tax and income tax. They have no excuse now, because there will be no need for the money when you get rid of. So we will forensically audit it as hard as we possibly can. In addition to this, then I have 40 seconds left. We will place that complete budget online, line itemized, for we the people to audit it anytime you want to. And it will be a comment section so you can hold us accountable. So you say, Mr. Herms, you spent $500 on that desk. I found it over here for $150. You lied to me. I apologize. We'll get that fixed right away. We, the people, need to hold our government accountable, right? Guess who we need to govern? We need to govern the so-called government, because they are employees of ours, and we, the people, cannot forget that.
Thank you, Mr. Herbs. So you kind of led us into our last question. We don't have time for all of them. I'm sorry, everyone, but the candidates will be here at their tables afterward if you want to go ask some questions. So how can you ensure California voters you will not succumb to corporate interest groups? Mr. Herms.
Well, the first thing we do is we need to have a contract with God. And that is God first. We the people. I've tattooed on my arm, and this is not just for fun, I tattooed on my arm, we the people, so I remind anytime I shake somebody's hand, if they try to compromise me, they understand who I answer to. That's how important that is. I'm a guardian for the people, I'm not a governor for the people. Where I have to do your bidding, not some fool that wants to try to compromise me or buy me off. Not interested. I've been talking this talk for a long time. Because of it, the FBI has been at my house and interrogated me. And I told them, by the time your heels hit the pavement, I will have this all over social media. And I did. And I schooled them on the Constitution. Not as eloquently as you, I'm sure. Right? In addition to that, unfortunately, there's a lot of threats that come our way. I've been poisoned 2 times. Thank God to a phenomenal doctor saved my life the last time. Why? Because these are the hard things that we're talking about. We have a construct right now. And you think Epstein is big? Epstein is small compared to what's going on. Right? You're going to hear names in the future like Burkle. Pay attention to those names. And this thing gets bigger and bigger. Because what they've created is they didn't create a child trafficking system. They created a network of control where they can compromise the most powerful people in the world in order to do their bidding for them. And if you think it's bullshit, just look up the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and you may just learn something today.
Thank you, Mr. Herms. Mr. Hahn?
Bottom line is I fear God. Fear of the Lord, say hate evil. Pride, arrogance, and the perverted mouth I hate, in Proverbs 8:13. Here's the point, is that by God's grace, I have been audited by the IRS twice. And the reason why is because they could not believe I gave away 80% of my income each year I was audited. To me, I'm untouchable when it comes to the love of money, the root of it, all evil. And I really believe that my heart is to give back to the community. And I'm making a promise right now. I've said this before. When I'm governor, I'm going to take my paycheck and give it to different charitable organizations in California. That's what President Trump's doing, and I can afford that because, again, my church is not supporting me. My network's not supporting me. It's my business, and my wife will continue that business when I'm governor.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn. Mr. Mercury?
What am I going to do? What am I going to do to ensure that I'm not going to be bought and paid for? I think I've been already proving that. When it comes to this race, I've already been approached a number of times. I've been at this for 6.5 years. 6.5 years I have been campaigning on my dime, not yours. And with the gracious supports of some people who have donated, but most of the money that's come in has been through in-kind donations, meaning that people have given up their resources. But the people I've talked to who have been donors, big donors that have spoken to me, also to some people who are the leading candidates on both sides of the fence, a lot of candidates get approached. But there's always a quid pro quo. And one of the last ones I asked, I said, listen, I've sat down with a number of donors and people who were going to contribute large amounts of sums of money. And they always say the same thing. They want to ensure their legacy on some level. And I've asked the last person, I said, listen, you've talked to me about 5 minutes. What do you want? And he said, that's a really great question. It's probably the most important question you could have asked. Why? Because, again, that individual has worked close with the government to ensure their legacy and that legislation will not interfere with their fortune, which comes back to the amount of money that has come in when I was asked during Congress. And in those contracts, I looked at the state codes and it said that if I took the money and I signed the contract, I could not do, I could not say, and I could not enact anything that would be counterintuitive or contradictory to that group, that pack, that family, that individual. And because it's the contract clause. Under the contract clause, I'll paraphrase, it says that the states cannot come up with the law to prevent the obligation of a contract. What does that mean? The right to contract and the right to a contract is not limited. That means the courts are going to take the Constitution and throw it out. Why? It doesn't apply. How come? Because the contract has to be fulfilled. And this is why you get a lot of people who get into office who wonder, how much money did you raise? Why do you care? Because it comes with a guarantee and it affects you. I haven't taken a dime of that. And that I've already proven myself.
Thank you, Mr. Mercury. Well, thank you all for being here. Can we get a round of applause for all the candidates?
We need to somehow work together. We really need to. We have the same shared values. It's amazing.
Thank God for candidates who will take a stand for what is right.
Amen.
Hallelujah. We are truly honored tonight. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. It is so appreciated. And we need more people that will take a stand for what is right and not be bought by the unions, right? That is our big enemy, is the unions, I believe.
Yes.
And so thank you all for coming. And I'm sure that they will be glad to answer your questions at their tables. And we will take the offering now. We need to cover our expenses. So the ushers, if you would pass the offering around, please. Thank you. And I have some announcements. You may go to your tables if you like. And I want to say, people, encourage your pastors to speak out. We need pastors who are not afraid to speak out and encourage their congregation members to vote and to vote intelligently. We're not in a time to vote just what the union tells us, right? Well, I just thank you so much for coming tonight and being part of this amazing evening. If you are interested in learning more about Eagles Forum, we have information at the membership table. Stephanie, raise your hand, please, so they'll know. Stephanie will be glad to give you literature about Eagle Forum. If you're interested in becoming a member, she has membership forms. Marie is at the Eagle Forum OC book table. Marie, raise your hand. Marie will help you if you want to register for our conference. And people, our conference is really going to be phenomenal this year. And you have a flyer in your packet about the conference. And tonight you can go to Marie's table and she'd be happy to help you. Okay, you are free to visit the candidates' tables. I'm sure that they have literature and information for you. Can you come up? If you want to use the restroom, you go through the door there, and the restroom is inside that room. What? Oh, okay. Apparently, we forgot to play Steve Hilton's video, and so Steve, our AV guy, Steve Jackson, is going to play it now. If you'd like to stay and watch, you're welcome to. Thank you so much for coming. Steve Jackson will play Steve Hilton's video right now.
This is what we're up against. This corrupt capital that represents everything that's gone wrong with our beautiful state of California. The bloat, the fraud, the corruption, the nanny state, bureaucratic government bossing us around from morning till night, telling us where to live, what car to drive, how to raise our kids, how to cook our food. The taxes that keep going up and up and up, and we get less and less and less in exchange. That's what this place represents. That's what I'm fighting against, and what I'm fighting for is the dream of California, the ideal that California represents, freedom and opportunity, the rebel spirit. That's what I love about California. I moved here in 2012 with my wife and my 2 sons. Long before that, my parents fled communism in Hungary so I could be born in freedom. We didn't move here to have that flame of freedom crushed by these bureaucrats and these far-left ideologues in the Democrat Party. No way. And I didn't see this beautiful state as a place that one day would end up in the same kind of state as England, with the socialism and the censorship and everything that we can see going wrong there. I'm fighting for working people in California who've been crushed by the highest gas prices in the country, electric bills that are more than double the national average, everything out of control, housing costs, taxes, water, insurance, everything driven sky high by these Democrat policies. That's what I'm fighting to change. I'm fighting for families so that children can be born and raised in this state and live and stay in this state and follow that California dream, a good job where you make enough to raise your family in a home of your own, in a nice neighborhood that's safe, with a good school, so your kids can have a better life than you. That's what I'm fighting for. Common sense, practical things. Restoring the California dream for the next generation. For our small business owners, I used to be a small business owner. Most of my career has been in business. I see the struggle that small business owners are going through in California with all the insanity, the climate ideology, the rules and regulations, and the fees and the permits. All of that's got to go. We've got to restore the California dream, and that means taking a sledgehammer to this bloated bureaucracy riddled with fraud and corruption. I've got the plans to do it, to end the Democrats' climate crusade, so we can have $3 gas and cut your electric bills in half. To cut the waste and spending and fraud and corruption so we can cut taxes, your first 100 grand, no state income tax. To stop the outrage of Gavin Newsom spending $20 billion of our money on free healthcare for illegal immigrants, so we can use that money to lower healthcare costs and wait times for Californians, and to end the ridiculous environmental regulations and labor regulations and the war on single-family homes, so we can restore that dream of home ownership, a home that you can afford to buy. That's what I'm fighting for. I call it Cal-affordable. If we do that, then we'll make sure that this beautiful state that I love does not turn into the country I left. We're going to fight for California. We're going to save California. We're going to make the California dream a reality again for everyone and make this beautiful state that we love so much truly golden again.
Steve Hilton running for governor, and Michael Gates running for attorney general.
This is the year we take back our state of California. This is the year we restore common sense and sanity and freedom. That's what's going to happen this year. We, Michael and I, we are running as a team to save California. But here's the thing. These 4 things in these first few days of this year that have really given me that determination and that drive. Fraud, fire, lies, and loss. And I'm going to just quickly talk about those 4 things. We all saw last year the fraud scandal emerge in Minnesota. However bad things are in Tim Walz's Minnesota, you can be sure they are 1,000 times worse in Gavin Newsom's California. I set about putting some numbers on it. We set up a hotline, an anonymous whistleblower tip line, to get the information that we need to find out about the fraud and to stop it. We've had hundreds of tips showing us where to look, and we've crunched the numbers, and we've looked at the budgets, and we've looked at the data that's already been published on the fraud, the 24 billion on homelessness, the 55 billion from the employment department and the pandemic, on and on. And we have published just last week our estimate of the fraud here in California. It's not the 70 billion or whatever they talk about. $250 billion of our money stolen. On Wednesday last week, I was up in the Palisades. It was the 1-year anniversary of that terrible fire. And I stood there with the community. And I listened to them. And I spoke at that rally. As I heard the testimony, the witness of those people in that community, the fire within me rose. You know what they put on the backdrop, what they called that event last Wednesday? They let us burn. Just think about the meaning of those words, the intensity of those words. That's how they feel, that they let us burn. And who is they? Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, the so-called leaders in California. They let us burn. Human beings saying that about their political leaders. That's why we have to change. The crazy ideological extremism that led to those fires burning out of control, the total incompetence, the empty reservoirs, the fire hydrant with no water in, on and on. And all of that came up for me last Wednesday as I stood there with that community. Fraud, fire, and then the next day from Gavin Newsom. Did you see his State of the State address? Lie after lie after lie to cover up failure after failure after failure. And it just reminded me that this is very serious, because we are up against people who will stop at nothing to protect their power. The shameless, brazen, lying. Our economy is doing great when we have the highest poverty level in the country. Innovation and opportunity when we have the highest unemployment rate. It's a fair economy, fairness, equity, compassion, when we have over half our kids in school can't read properly in the state school system that they run. Over a third of our people can't afford their basic needs. And these people have the nerve to lecture us about compassion and justice. No more. Enough with the lies, enough with the failure. We cannot take this anymore. And then, after the fraud and the fire and the lies, loss. Look at the consequences of the political games these people pay. Have you heard about the billionaire tax? We already pay the highest taxes in the country. The top 1% of our community pays nearly half the income tax. So guess what they're doing? Driving out even more successful people. with another insane tax. Why do they want to raise this billionaire's tax? They say they need the money for healthcare. They wouldn't need the money for healthcare if they weren't spending $13 billion of our money every year on free healthcare for people who shouldn't even be in the country. And I just want to explain very briefly what's going on with this billionaire's tax, because it really tells the story of this corrupt Democrat machine that we are up against. It's being pushed by a union. The unions, who are the puppet masters of the Democrat politicians. And they're apparently trying to get this on the ballot to use as leverage in their budget negotiations with the governor. And they may even take it off the ballot because it's some stupid Sacramento game they're playing. Well, guess what's already happened? Fraud, fire, lies, loss. It's too much what they're doing to our state. It's too much what they're doing to our families and our communities. And we are saying, no way, no more. That's enough. This is the year. We kick them out. This is the year. We fight back. Take back our state. We will make the California dream a reality again for everyone and make this beautiful state that we love so much truly golden again.